welcome. And here we are, another Tuesday. I'm excited to be here with Mike Delmonico. And let me just start by saying someone connected me to Mike, one of my friends, and I jumped on his LinkedIn profile. And what caught my attention was the first line. It said, I coach and train others how to move from dreaming about a better life to actually living one by making their money work for them. Mike, thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, man. It's an honor.
Awesome. Well, let's jump right in. Tell us about that first line on your LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely. My passion in life. So working in the financial industry is great. You get to talk about money and teach people how money works, and that kind of stuff is fun. But what I really, truly have found in my life I'm passionate about is coaching people mentally, coaching people about how their brain works, how they can do more with it, how they can function higher, live better, be happier. Those are the things that I've found in my life have been really exciting, and so that's where that comes from on my LinkedIn. Is that's what I'm most passionate about, coaching people on those ideas. And we're beaten down in life, right? We start off when my son's 8. He's certain he can race monster trucks when he's an adult. He has no idea how much they cost and all that, right? And you start growing up and you start getting beaten down by these ideas of like monster truck racing costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Like, and you got to live in Alabama. Apparently, I'm kidding, but a lot of them are down there, right? So like, we're in Denver. But my point with that is just our dreams get just we dream here, and then life hits here, and then we just slowly bring our dreams down, right? Yeah. And one of my favorite things is just to help people get those dreams back up to where they were and start dreaming again a little bit. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I think you put that out there and the universe responds better, right? And so that's part of what I love about life, is coaching people to do those kinds of things and start thinking bigger.
Right. So I wasn't expecting to go here, but you triggered a couple of thoughts in my mind. And my friends and I just finished a 15-person group backpacking trip from Crested Butte to Aspen and back, the 4-loop pass in Colorado.
Oh my gosh.
Amazing.
I'm sure. That's beautiful up there.
So beautiful. Wildflowers, the columbines. It was amazing. But one person was just admiring this waterfall. And she said, oh, I want to be a waterfall.
Ooh.
And it just comes back to dreaming. And like, we have these dreams, right? And that could be a metaphor for so many things. But someone instantly said, don't let the logistics get in the way of a dream. And I think that was metaphorical, to not let the logistics get in the way, but just encouraging someone to just keep going for what they envision. And Mike, you talk about helping people function higher and live better. Tell us a little bit more about that. Can you give me and listeners some context there?
Yeah, real quick. I just want to say I'm stealing that. I wrote that down. Don't let the logistics get in the way of your dreams. I love that line. So thank you for that. And I apologize. I was just so enthralled with that. Ask me that question one more time. I was like, man, this is brilliant. That's brilliant. Whoever said that, please tell them I loved it.
I will. And so the question is, you mentioned helping people function higher and live better, and just helping people understand how the brain works. Can you give us some context there?
Absolutely. So a lot of what I coach my team to do is learning how to going from firing in the amygdala to the cerebral cortex. Is kind of the short version of it. But really, my explanation of that is, your amygdala is your fight or flight, right? And we're trained to deal with everything that happens in life there first, right? Super quick reaction, fight or flight reaction when it's not life or death, but that's how we treat things, right? And when you live in that cerebral cortex, that's when you live in that amygdala, that fight or flight, That's when it's just high drama, high intensity, high anxiety life, right? Everything. And to give you an example, when it goes up when your thoughts go through your brain, they hit your amygdala first, and that's a tiny little piece of your brain. And what happens is half of them never make it past, right, into your cerebral cortex, which is your logic. And so a lot of understanding how your brain works helps people move through that, where, a lot of what I do is I'll work with people on building meditation practices. I'll work with people on building breathing practices, understanding how to slow everything down and create reactions that are more logical rather than irrational or reactionary. And so that's the first step I take everybody on when I'm helping them build what I call a wonderful life, right? My goal is to help people build a wonderful life. And so that's part of what that looks like. So that's the first half, is like the actual physical actions that happen inside your brain. But the second half is of what I do is my favorite. And what I coach people on is, who Carl Jung is? Carl Jung, the psychologist. He was Sigmund Freud's apprentice, and then became quite famous himself by studying the subconscious. That's what he did. He was the godfather of the subconscious, they call him, right? And I'll tell you, I'm going to give you some backstory before I get into the second part of what I teach people. So in 2012, so from let's start even back to 2004, I was a bartender all the way up till until I turned 31. So from 2004 to about 15, I was a bartender. Okay. And I did that because I was in a band. These are my guitars back here. This is how I do my meetings with clients. I love my guitars. I love playing guitar. It's a huge part of my life. I was in thrash punk bands. I'm tattooed from the neck down. Like I was in terrible metal bands at points in my life. I was in one band. We got signed and we got to tour the country. We were just a crappy punk band, and we got to go on Warped Tours. It was amazing, right? And so I have random shitty tattoo. Can I say that? Random crappy tattoos, right? And anyway, so I bartended because it allowed me to go play gigs when I wanted to tour when I wanted to, and to do the things I wanted to do and still pay the bills. And I found out quickly that I really enjoyed bartending because it's so social, and I love that, right? Cut to about 10 years later, now I got a wife and a kid, and I don't love it anymore. I absolutely hated it. And I didn't have a kid yet. I had a kid on the way, and I just hated the idea of being out late. My son was, probably 6 months from being born, and I'm here at 4 a.m, getting home from work and sleep until 4 the next day. Just like I can't do this. And so I was looking for a new direction in life, and was trying to be as cool as I was. I wanted to show the girl I was with some cool bands downtown Denver, and we rode our bikes to a show. And I was drinking. I drank a lot and rode our bikes back, and ended up clipping a parked car. I flew over the front of my bike and bounced between some cars. When I fell, I hit my head on the curb, and I hit the back of my head on the curb hard enough to shatter my skull. And luckily, the woman that I was with was a nurse. She was in nursing school. And so she got me to a hospital quickly. But by the time I got home, so what she did is she got us in a cab like right away. By the time I got home, I wasn't tracking anymore. So I was like, my eyes were rolling around. I was vomiting pretty profuse. I couldn't function. I lost all function in my legs almost immediately. And what was happening is a subdural hematoma in my head, I later found out. And it's just it's blood bubble, right? Blood is just pouring into your brain, and there's nowhere for it to go. And so it's putting pressure on your softest organs like your brainstem. And so it started crushing my brainstem, started slowly just stopping function, right, in my body. And got me to the hospital. My friends, actually, I lived catty corner from PSL, Presbyterian St. Luke's, downtown Denver. So my friends came and got me and just dragged me across the street. They literally carried me and put me in a wheelchair across the street. They did some MRIs, CAT scans, and the resource nurse at the hospital said, "We're not a neuro hospital. Let's get him to Flight for Life me to Swedish." Swedish is a neuro hospital. And so there they stopped the bleeding. They were going to drill a hole in my head to release the pressure, but that can cause brain damage. And the reason I know all of this, Justin, and this is the crazy part, is because when I got to Swedish, I was completely paralyzed to the point where I couldn't even talk. I was in the gurney. You know, in the movies when they're in the gurney and all the nurses and doctors are running down
Yeah.
the way, right? I was in that gurney, right? Lights flying over me, doctors all talking to each other, beeping and things and hoses and cords everywhere. And the nurse kept saying, "Hey, are you uncomfortable? Is there anything? Are you in pain? Is there anything we can do?" And I kept saying, "Yeah, this neck brace." They had a neck brace on me. I was like, "I think it's sideways or crooked. It doesn't feel right." And she kept saying, "Hey, is there anything we can do? Are you in pain?" And I kept telling her this neck brace, and she grabbed the doctor and she's like, "Hey, he's not responding." And that's when I realized I wasn't actually talking. I mean, it's crazy when you lose all of your functioning, right? But you're coherent. I was totally coherent. In my brain, the front of my brain, the part that's just like, you know, like me, reality right now was going, "Oh my God, something's so wrong right now. This is not good." Like I thought I was talking. And so anyway, Swedish ended up taking care of, what they did is they stopped the bleeding into my brain with some pressure points in the back of my head. And they decided to let the hematoma drain over the next 2 weeks. And as it drained, I, slowly regained function, learned how to walk again over that 2 week period. I lost taste. I lost hearing in my right ear, about 40% hearing in my right ear, couldn't taste anything at all. Those now that COVID's around, this was back in 2012. Now that COVID's around and people have experienced no taste, now people are starting to understand just how awful that is, how crazy it is when you bite into an apple and it's just not sweet, and it's a pretty incredible experience. It was, so I spent that 2 weeks recovering, then 4 weeks on my mom's couch recovering. And as I was recovering on 4 months on my mom's couch. As I was recovering on my mom's couch, I lost my job, my car, my apartment. I lost everything. I was a bartender with no health insurance. I got bills for $130,000 for helicopter rides and ICU stays. And, as everything's racking up, I was just depressed out of my mind. And I decided I was going to just start doing some learning. I was going to start reading about stuff and start trying to figure out what's going on. I was going to fix what's happening in my brain because I was so depressed. And I started reading about Carl Jung, the subconscious. He's the godfather of the subconscious. And the way it started is I grew up with this comic book called The Max. And I don't know if ever remember The Max, big purple guy, MAXX. And it's a comic book about your subconscious. It's incredible. And I knew that it was about the subconscious of Carl Jung. And so I started thinking about how cool that was. And I started reading about it. And it's learning about how my brain works and learning about what's possible with my brain brought me out of the depression and just the possibilities that are available. That, and I ended up having a son shortly after that, which that's the greatest thing ever. But so I learned quickly that you can change a lot by what you tell yourself, what you do for yourself. And so then to get to what I teach people, the second half of what I teach people is Carl Jung's theory of the first half of life and the second half of life. The first half of life you spend building your ego, and the second half of life you spend letting it go. And a better way to explain that is this. The first half of life, the question you ask yourself internally is, what is the world asking of me? What do I need to do to fit in? What's the coolest clothes to wear? Right? What's the coolest music to listen to? And then that's it, teenage years. Then if we get younger, it's what do I need to do so my parents accept me? Right? And we build these programs that say, Mom doesn't like it when I yell, so don't yell. I get accepted and loved by not yelling, and that's your program. What is the world asking of me to fit in, right? Second half of life is, what is my soul asking of me? I've already built my ego. I've already built who I am. I don't need to be accepted anymore. I am a responsible adult. I can stand in my own. What do I want? What do I need? And one of the cool things that, things like what fulfills my soul? Can I help people? Do I want to help people? Do I want to make money? Do I want to create, do I want to give to charity? What do I want to do? And the most amazing part about all of this, as I'm doing all this learning and reading, is Carl Jung says that most people never make it to second half of life. It's not like you turn 40 and you just shift. most people never get to what's my soul asking of me. Most people die trying to answer what is the world asking of me. And that's a depressing and sad fact. And so what I do is when I work with people, I spend a lot of time helping them shift out of what is the world asking of me into what is my soul asking of me. That's how you lead a wonderful life. I work with a life coach who is like my mentor on this stuff. I found somebody who knows this stuff through and through. And him and we have these amazing, every 2 weeks I meet with this guy. We have these amazing hour-long sessions where we just dive into my psyche, into my, soul and what's the world asking me, what's my soul. And we go through all of it. And I just spend my time teaching people the things I learn about that. Because I have a wonderful life. I love my life. And I used to hate me, right? But I was answering all the wrong questions. And so anyway, so that's what it looks like, to answer your question. Those are the things that I work with people on and the things I'm passionate about teaching.
Mike, that was the best, unexpected, most fruitful tangent I've had on this podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that story. I have to appreciate the fact that I've never thought about it like that. We start our lives, what is the world asking of me? And I feel that right now. Mm-hmm. And I would like to think that I'm also trying to answer what is my soul asking of me, but certainly it's easiest to focus on what is the world asking of me.
Yeah.
What do I need to be experiencing? What do I need to be doing? What do I need to be fill in the blank? And so was this moment for you, having this awful traumatic experience, clipping the bike and what came of that, which led to feeling depressed and starting your learning journey, was that the moment for you that started the learning process of what is your soul asking of you?
Great question. Yeah, well, it opened the door.
It opened the door.
It didn't start it yet. So as I was learning about Carl Jung, I would go, oh, okay, second half life. Cool. Let's do it. Like, here we go into the getting rid of your ego, right? It wasn't until I found a mentor and a coach that understood the process and understood it all, mm-hmm. and helped me walk through that I started understanding what it looks like, right? Because we all read about theories that we like. If you want to be a pilot, you can read about being a pilot for 100 hours. And then you get in the cockpit and you're like, oh, I don't really know what to do, right? Like, that's the problem, right? And so learning about it and reading about it is what was happening. And that's what basically opened the door for me to go, all right, this hasn't been working, right? Like, I'm not happy with my life. So there's got to be something in this second half. And that opened the door. That was just me reading about it and learning, right? And then finding a mentor and a coach is what put me in the cockpit. And he was like, hey, I'm going to sit next to you. Go ahead, fly the plane. Show me what you know. And as I was, taking off and flipping switches metaphorically, he's going, nope, don't flip that one. That's the one that's going to make you feel different, right? And I'd be like, all right, so do I pull up yet? No, don't pull up yet. Take a few more, go a little further. You need to get up to 80 miles an hour to get off the ground. It's just coaching. That's what really started the process for me. But learning opened the door for sure.
And I can appreciate the need for a mentor, for a coach to be on the journey with you. But I also have to point out that you have to give yourself credit too. And not just you, but anyone who's diving in to grow personally. You have to take the first step. You had to go get that first book. You had to start to learn, and you had to start to go for something different. Even if you didn't know it would be the right thing, you went for something different because you knew where you were right then in that situation was not working for you. And yeah. I think the open door concept is great. And I'll go on a side tangent because you triggered another great I think, lesson. And that was, I've done, I can't even think on the spot, 4 or 5 years of pull-ups for Tanzania fundraisers. And after the first year of raising $25,000 and having this crazy idea to do 1,000 pull-ups in one day and raise money, well, 10 months later, people said, "Hey, are you going to do that again? I'd like to join you and like get involved too." And I started to have all these feelings of doubt. And the first time I did that fundraiser, I just went for it, right? I didn't let the logistics get in the way, to reference what we said earlier, and what my friend advised. But the second time, I was worried about failing. And I think the fear of failure is an inhibitor for a lot of people. And I was struggling whether to do this again or not. And I called my grandpa. And my grandpa happened to be teaching a Sunday school series on the open door. So that's how you triggered this memory for me. And I talked to him and I said what I just told you. I said, "Grandpa, I'm scared that it's not going to work again. It might just be a one-time thing." And he said, "Why did you do this last year?" I said, "Well, I did it because I wanted to bring water to people who don't have water." He said, "Are there still people who don't have clean water? Or did that solve the problem for everyone?"
Yes.
And I said, "Well, of course, Grandpa, like there's still more people." And he said, "What are you afraid of?" And I told him, "I'm afraid of failing." And he said, "Think about your words. When you did this the first time, you were doing it to serve other people. Now you're letting your own personal fear of failure get in the way. Now it's about you. It's not about them." And what a humbling and awful and awesome reflection at the same time for the thoughts that were going on in my head, Mike.
Yeah.
And I think we can learn from this open door thinking. Are we shutting the door before we even look to see what's on the other side sometimes?
Yeah. And I got to tell you, as you're talking, I was like, all right, so when you first did that, you were working in second half of life. What's my soul asking of me? This fulfills me. I want to help these people. And man, all it took was just a year of thinking about it for your old self to kick in and go, wait, what if people see me fail? Now you're worried about what the world's asking of you, right? And so it shows how we go back and forth. There is no like, I don't just live in my second half right now. I'm working on it every day, right? But it's always, and it's identifying it, like you said, like the open door theory. I mean, you identify that and say, oh, all right, I forgot my why. I forgot what I was doing this for, right? And your grandpa's brilliant. What a great question. Is there still people that need water? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot that's why I was doing this, right? And I think you touched on something else. You said, well, first you said, give yourself credit. Man, I've learned I refuse to work with people that aren't ready to learn. And people are like, well, I'm ready to change. Yeah, but are you ready to learn? Are you really open to it, right? And I think when you say give yourself credit, the people that are making the effort, the people that are doing it are willing to take responsibility. And if there's change you want in life, but change isn't happening, it's because you're not letting it, right? You're not
Say that
taking
again.
responsibility.
I want you to say that again for listeners.
If you want change in life, but change isn't happening, it's because you're not letting it. And I'm going to say this without any, I hope nobody feels attacked with this, because when I first heard this, I was like, are you attacking me? The victim consciousness, the victim mindset of it is happening to me is what stops any change from happening there forward. Right? Taking responsibility for everything and where you are in life is the most important thing you can do. Most important thing you can do. I once heard a guy say, I take responsibility for everything. If a meteor hit and killed my wife, I would take responsibility for it by not knowing enough about astronomy. I should have paid more attention to where we're at in the universe right now, right? Like he goes to the extreme and say, I will take responsibility for everything in my life. And obviously that's a crazy example, but the point that he's getting at is you can't change anything that's not your fault. So if you can make sure that everything in your life has something to do with you, you can start making shifts. And when you said give yourself credit, that triggered that for me, that you were so right. You have to take responsibility, and then you're right. You got to give yourself credit, because man, the amount of people in the world that are willing to change, the percentage is so small. And if you're listening to this podcast and you're on your journey and you're taking responsibility, congratulations. You're in a very small percent of people that want to do more. They want to live a wonderful life, right? And you're taking action to do it. And that's, these kinds of podcasts like this, where wonderful people like you are offering amazing resources and doors for people. These people that are taking action on that, they should be celebrated, right? Because you walk down the street, 95% of the population will never make it to second half of life. 95% of the population is living in first half of life. And you get to walk down the street with your AirPods in, listening to this podcast, knowing that you're not a part of that.
Yeah, or at least you're not trying to be, right? As we go back and forth.
Right, but you're officially not a part of it if you're working on it, right? Like that's in my, but you're right? We go back and forth. But I think you're exactly right, man. Give yourself credit for that, and it's a pretty wonderful thing when you start living in responsibility and start taking responsibility for your life.
Yeah, and let's just take this opportunity to give listeners a small moment of silence to give themselves credit for something they've done this last week. Yeah, I hope you do give yourself credit for something you did and something you accomplished and something you worked toward. Mike, last question I have for you. Who's the most selfless person in your life?
Oh, wow. I got to think about that, man.
I put you on the spot. I know it. Who is the most selfless person in your life?
I got to say, I've spent the last number of years surrounding myself with people that I love, look up to, care about dearly in many ways. And there's a few people that I see that I constantly admire. My mentor, my coach, his name's Nick. That guy is, man, that guy's second half of life all the way. I mean, he has, out of everyone I know, he has the fewest trips back to first life. He still has them, but that is one selfless human being. That guy puts hours of energy into coaching other people in this way. A friend of mine on my team, Zach is the kind of guy that, last minute something happens, he's at your door helping. He'll drop everything to be there for anybody, even if he just met you. Biggest heart on a person. And he's a tall guy, so I imagine physically his heart is large, but metaphorically, right? He's like 6 feet tall.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. I love that. Okay, I'm actually going to ask you one more question. I lied.
This is great, man. I love this. So you keep going.
So on our backpacking trip, we had this question. You spend a lot of time walking nowhere, right? You get to the top and there's no bar or beer to celebrate. It's just high fives on top. Yeah. So as we struggle through the journey to hike and backpack, we were asking questions to each other to pass time. And here's a fun question. I'll put you on the spot one more time, Mike.
Sure, go ahead. This is fun.
Okay, so you can answer either of these first. If you were on death row and you had one more meal, what would it be? And why were you on death row to begin with? And then I'll tell you why this wraps in to what you just answered to the previous question.
Oh. All right, so let's do the meal first, because I can do that one's easier. So my family, my grandparents used to live in Cincinnati, and we'd go out there to visit them, and we'd get Skyline Cincinnati chili all the time.
Love that.
And I love, you either love it or hate it, right? Well, so we never got the recipe, but my mom worked, for years to find the best recipe she could. And we've found a recipe that's our family's recipe now that is different than Skyline. I like it so much better. And that's our comfort food. I'd have Cincinnati chili 5 ways, the way my mom and I both make it. And that's like, I could eat that every day. So that's my meal right there. Cincinnati chili, believe it or not.
And for anyone who doesn't know Skyline, while you're thinking about the other answer, you get the baseline of the spaghetti, and then you have the sauce, the meat sauce, and then just a mound of cheese, right? Just a mound of cheese.
So much cheese. Yeah, dry spaghetti with meat, chili, and pounds of cheese. Yeah. Man, I'll be honest with you. I don't think there's anything, I wouldn't be on death row, man. I'm thinking like, I don't know. My life is so wonderful right now. There's nothing that would happen. I don't drink and drive. I don't get that angry about. So I don't know. I'm really like at a loss. I don't think I'd be on death row.
So, Mike, let me interject. I think that someone selfless like you, teaching, coaching other people, these mentors in your life, these selfless people in your life, I think the answer might be you dropped everything to go help someone, and someone took advantage of you, and you found yourself in the wrong place, wrong time, framed for murder, and that's why you're
100%. I was framed. Absolutely. 100%. I'm watching a show about that right now. That's the only way I'd be on death row, man.
So listeners, if you have a favorite meal, reach out, tell us what it is for fun, or if you think there's a reason you might be there. We had doctors on the hike, and they said potentially negligence or something where they didn't know. But
I can understand. Yeah.
Yeah. So listeners, give us some feedback. We'd love to hear it. Mike, this has been a pure joy. I think one of my favorite things about this conversation is that I asked you if we could focus on leadership, and I believe we did, and we never used the word leadership.
No, man, I just real quick, if I have just a second, I don't think leadership is a position you step into or label yourself. I think when you're chasing a wonderful life and all you have to do is turn back and teach people what you're doing to accomplish your own wonderful life, that's leadership, but it's not a feeling when you're doing it. You're not leading. I'm not out there leading. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to get my own wonderful life and showing everybody else what I'm learning about it. And you don't have to use that word to do it. And the people that lead me they don't use that word. They're just doing exactly that. And this podcast is incredible. This concept I'm saying that you do, I love it. And I'm really, and it's an honor to be on it. And you're a fantastic human for doing it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for your personal experiences, sharing what you've experienced up to this point with the intention of helping other people. Selfless use of your time. For everyone, this is Mike's day off, and he's still joining us, dropping some knowledge bombs. So great. Everyone, have a wonderful week. Check the show notes if you want to reach out to us and let us know your thoughts on today's show. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Justin.
All right. See ya.